Hi, I'm Kimberly, and welcome to As I've Seen It. One of my favorite places to visit is Seville, Spain. It's beautiful, it's historic, Seville has great music, it has great food, and it has wonderful people, which is why I don't understand this. Every year, for the Festival of the Three Kings, the Epiphany, there's a huge parade the night before in Seville on January 5th, and part of that parade would be the Three Kings, one of which would be Balthazar. Balthazar is supposed to be the black one. And every year, Seville paints somebody white to be Balthazar. This year, 2017, it was the mayor of Seville. The highest elected official in the city went through a parade in blackface. Yeah. So when I complain to people in Seville about this, because you know I complain, I get usually one of three answers. One, oh, Kimberly, this is tradition. Balthazar has to be black because this is tradition, and so whoever is chosen to be Balthazar, which is a great honor, has to be painted black. Okay. Two, I get, oh, Kimberly, Spain does not have the same tradition of slavery that America did. You know, Spain didn't have slavery like the colonies did, so it doesn't have the same history of racism, and it certainly doesn't have the history of minstrelsy. So, you know, you're imposing your American ideas on Spain and, you know, kind of overreacting. Three, I get, oh, but it's not racist because we don't mean it that way. Oh, no, this is just following, you know, history and tradition. So because it's not intended to be racist, it's not racist. This is harmless. This is no big deal. It's a big deal. And I'm going to address each of those points in turn. Let's start with Balthazar has to be black. The story of the Magi, the wise men from the East, comes from Matthew's Gospel. Matthew chapter 2, verses 1 to 12. Now, Matthew states that wise men came from the East. That's basically it as far as descriptions go. Matthew says the wise men gave gold, frankincense, and myrrh to the newborn baby Jesus. Matthew's Gospel is written in Greek, and the word Magi is there. And that word actually has Persian origins. Persia, the ancient kingdom, which we now refer to as Iran. Remember, Iranians are Persians, they're not Arabs. Big difference. So, because Matthew called them Magi, we know that they were probably Persian. We know that they were astrologers and astronomers. The Catholic Church likes to say astronomers because they don't like astrology because that predicts what's going to happen. But history tells us that Magi from Persia were astrologers and astronomers, and this fits with the story. Remember, astronomy, they were following this new star. Astrology, this star told them that the birth of a king was happening wherever they found the star. Let's talk about what Matthew doesn't tell us. First of all, Matthew's gospel doesn't state how many. It just says wise men. There could have been 2. There could have been 200. Matthew doesn't state that they were kings. He says Magi. Matthew doesn't give them names. Caspar, Melchior, Balthazar, not in the Bible, not in Matthew's gospel, not tied to this story. Matthew also doesn't give them colors. He doesn't say one is white, one is Asian, one is black. He doesn't say one is white, one is brown, one is black. Wise men came from the East. So where did all of this other stuff come from? Well, it came from the church. The church first decided there must have been 3 Magi because there were 3 gifts. Then the church, looking at Old Testament prophecy about the birth of the Savior to the Jewish people, they saw that he would be revered by kings. So these 3 visitors all of a sudden became kings, and then they got names, Most of that happened around 500 AD, a good 500 years after these events were supposed to have taken place. It wasn't until at least the 8th century that Balthazar became black. And depictions of Balthazar as black go back to about the 13th century. This particular free sculpture, which I believe used to be an altarpiece, is in northern Spain, and it's one of the earliest depictions of Balthazar as black. Many of the earliest are paintings, but this is one of the earliest sculptures. The tradition that we have had passed down to us today, with 3 wise men who are kings, who are 3 different colors, is about as closely related to the original as Santa Claus, this white dude with the fluffy beard and the red clothes, is related to the original St. Nicholas, who was a bishop in Turkey. If you're talking about sticking to the original story, Balthazar doesn't have to be black. Balthazar needs to be Persian. They don't even have to be Melchior, Caspar, and Balthazar. They can be Mike, Chuck, and Bob. The second argument I often get is, Kimberly, Spain doesn't have the same history of slavery as America. Oh, are you so wrong? We know from historical record, from the church's records, from the work done by great researchers over the last 30 to 40 years, not only did slavery in Spain predate slavery in the Americas, obviously, it goes all the way back to the Middle Ages. And I'm not talking about the North Africans, the Moors. I'm talking about sub-Saharan black Africans sold as slaves in Spain for centuries before Columbus ever sailed from Spain. The conquistadors took Africans with them, Spaniards of African descent, the most famous of whom was Estevanico, a black man who went with them across what is now the southern United States. And black African slaves in Spain were not rare. By the middle of the 16th century, by the 1550s at least, the population of Seville, 7% African. The population of Cadiz on the coast, 15%. There were slaves in Madrid, Barcelona, Valencia, Granada, Cordoba, all over the place, and particularly in southern Spain. There are historians who believe that southern Spain had the highest percentage of slaves in Europe. And by the end of the 17th century, late 1600s, the population in Cadiz was still 10% African. So even after plantations grew in the New World and there was a far greater demand for slaves in the New World, there was still a significant population of Africans in Spain. Part of the misunderstanding about slavery in Spain, medieval into Renaissance, is people think of plantations. They think of slavery in the New World. Well, slaves in Spain were household slaves, many of them. And you didn't have to be a rich person to have a slave in Spain. So at every socioeconomic level, there were black Africans working in Spanish households. There were black Africans who were artisans, who were craftspeople in Spain. And some of the best accounts of Africans in medieval and particularly Renaissance Spain come from the arts.